Alleluia, 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 The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark.
Glory to you, Lord.
Jesus withdrew toward the sea with his disciples. A large number of people followed from Galilee and from Judea. Hearing what he was doing, a large number of people came to him also from Jerusalem, from Idumea, from beyond the Jordan, and from the neighborhood of Tyre and Sidon. He told his disciples to have a boat ready for him because of the crowd, so that they would not crush him. He had cured many, and as a result, those who had diseases were pressing upon him to touch him. And whenever unclean spirits saw him, they would fall down before him and shout, "You are the Son of God." He warned them sternly not to make him known. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Today is the feast day of two people. Today is the feast of St. Vincent, an early church martyr. He was a deacon. So in the early church, there were three martyr deacons who were heavily venerated in the early church. There was St. Stephen, who was martyred in Jerusalem itself. There was St. Lawrence, who was martyred in the city of Rome. And then St. Vincent, who was actually in Spain. And they all had a tremendous influence on the early church. It's also the feast of St. Marianne Cope. St. Marianne Cope is a saint from our own land. She was born in Germany, and when she joined a religious order, she was sent to the United States. And so she worked in New York for many years, and then eventually she was sent to Hawaii. So there was a bishop of that region and a king of Hawaii who was begging religious orders to come and minister to the lepers who were on the island of Molokai. So St. Damien, you probably heard of St. Damien of Molokai, he was one of the first people to go and minister there as a priest. And then St. Marianne Cope and some of her sisters came to Hawaii. St. Damien asked her to send some of her sisters because she was the religious superior, and she decided to go herself along with the sisters, and for 30 years she ministered there. Her and St. Damien were both canonized in the early 2000s, so they're kind of recent saints, and they're saints from the United States, so it's very interesting, beautiful. One of the miracles that was attributed to St. Marianne Cope, very interestingly enough, is there was a man who was actually crushed and killed by a truck, and in the moments after he was pronounced dead, people started praying to St. Marianne Cope for a miracle. And miraculously, he came back to life and lived a very long life after that. He may even still be alive today, I'm not sure, but very interesting miracle. Also in today's readings, we continue to hear from this letter to the Hebrews, and there's this very significant line in here that is often overlooked by Christians. At OCIA on Tuesday night, I was teaching some of the people in the class, and they were talking about their first experience of coming to Mass, right? Coming from a Protestant denomination. Oftentimes, some of the Wabash students will tell me this too at the Wabash Mass, because there's many Protestants that will come. They talk about how strange it was, right, to go to Mass for the first time. In many Protestant churches, you hear hymns that are sung and maybe some music, and there's a sermon, but all the ritual, the altar servers, the incense, the repetitive prayers, the Latin, and everything else, it's very foreign. And there's many Christians today, right, who think that Catholics are very strange for doing those things. There's a common mentality that basically comes from the Protestant Reformation on down, that basically the biggest criticism that Jesus had of the Pharisees and Sadducees was how obsessed they were with the rites and the rituals of the temple. But But that's a misunderstanding. Right? They think that because Jesus was so against all those things, now in modern Christianity, he's basically done away with all those ritual kind of things. And now we just, we have a personal relationship with Jesus, we follow his teachings, right? And all the stuff that, for example, Catholics do at the Mass, it seems very strange. But it's important to remember that when the Jews in Jerusalem, when they built the temple, and all those years they spent worshiping in the temple, they did not do it on their own authority. It was not their idea to build the temple. It was not their idea to have God be worshipped in that way. As the book of Exodus clearly states, and likewise the books of Chronicles with David and his temple, the tabernacle and the temple, they were both built after the pattern of the heavenly temple, of the heavenly tabernacle. When Moses built the tabernacle and David built the temple, they didn't just build an arbitrary structure. God revealed to them the pattern of how the temple in heaven looks. This is all significant because when Jesus came, of course he wouldn't do away with all of the temple rituals, because heaven itself is a sanctuary, a temple, a tabernacle. And so as Catholics, every time we have Mass, we are participating in the worship of the heavenly temple. It's a very important understanding to remember, especially in dialogue with Protestants and Catholics today. Right? God himself is the one who invented these rituals. He's the one who invented the temple and the priesthood. Something else that is kind of interesting, and I just learned this a few weeks ago. I was talking with some of the priests who I spent time with, and they were talking about this word pattern. See, they make everything according to the pattern shown you on the mountain. This is what God showed, or what he said to Moses, right, when he was building the tabernacle. Interestingly enough, that same word, the pattern, it comes up again at the Last Supper. Jesus says, I have given you a pattern to follow, after he washed the disciples' feet. What many people don't realize about the washing of the feet is that it was not just Jesus teaching the disciples about humility. It was part of their ordination. That in the Old Testament, before somebody could be ordained, they had to first be washed. And so Jesus was washing those disciples, making them his first priests. And then he said, I have given you this pattern to follow. What does that mean? It means that not only was Jesus teaching them the way of humility, but he was beginning the foundation stones of the new temple that he was building, which is the church. The church built of living stones, built upon the apostles. That was the pattern he was showing them.